My log has something to tell you.
Tonight, we are diving in head first into one of my favorite unknown, known, reported, not reported on UFO flaps and entity flaps of history, of United States history, and that is the one going on in the 50s and 60s, a time of great political and historical tumult. Look it up if you don't believe me. Mothman, also during this time, there were many UFO and entity sightings. That's what's meant when I say a UFO flap. It's a time of great weirdness, a time when the veil is thin and many people are having encounters with the unknown. In one particular town in West Virginia, Point Pleasant to be exact, they were terrorized by a flying, red-eyed monster that struck fear and dread into everyone it met. Cited by hundreds, if not thousands. Pets have gone disappeared, people terrified on their drive home. Some people seeing a strange vision of a dark future, and then suddenly, a disaster strikes. And that is the story of the Mothman. Not just a story of a weird entity, but a story of lights in the sky, a story of heightened poltergeist activity, a story of strange calls from strange men and strange encounters with even stranger men on the highways and byways and at your front door, while a terrifying Birdman flies in the skies, circling cars, swooping down, pulling hair, scratching windshields, menacing children, standing on porches and peering through windows. And that's just a taste, a small flavor of what we're getting into tonight in the history and the mystery of West Virginia's Mothman. Just a small part of the great UFO flap of the 1960s. Not only Mothman, but also the strangeness of the Ohio River Valley during that time. Tonight, our research comes from one of the greats, one of the grandfathers, the granddaddies, and heroes of the weird, and that is John A. Keel. He wrote an amazing book called Strange Creatures from Time and Space. I have a very old and falling apart copy here, but it's a beautiful book that gathers stories and tales from that great UFO flap of the 50s and 60s and all the weird monsters and creatures that were sighted during that time. He was on the ground talking to the witnesses of Mothman during the same year that they saw the creature. That's whose information we're mining tonight. We got all our info from this book and one other book, The Field Guide to North American Cryptids by W. Hayden Blackman. Another great coffee table book if you're looking for a compendium on how to meet these monsters, because you definitely shouldn't be hunting them down. Let's get to the freaking wasteland already. And look, here we are. Wow. Look at this smooth motherfucker. Now, this guy, why he's one of my favorite heroes of the weird, is he united strange things under one umbrella of weird. We're going to see in this story that Mothman isn't just a cryptid sighted. He's tied to UFO sightings and poltergeist activity as well. Dollars to donuts, when there's lights in the sky, there's creatures running by, and even more dollars to more donuts, there's a possible connection to heightened ghost and poltergeist activity in the area as well. So let us dive in. Thank you, Mr. Keel, for doing this research. Like all of our creatures, the story doesn't necessarily begin where it begins. It begins somewhere secret, somewhere that's not necessarily reported in the classic Mothman lore. And that is 1963 in Kent, England. Across the jolly old pond, 4 boys witnessed 2 glowing red objects float around the trees. They reported it as like they were looking up at it and it followed them for a bit, and then they saw it slowly descend behind the tree line. Then the lights went out. After the lights went out, a headless figure emerged from the tree line and started walking towards them. They saw 2 bright red eyes like on the chest, but they said it looked like it had wings but no head. And then the creature ascended and flew off away from the boys. And that is the first known sighting of what we might consider a Mothman. Let's fast forward now to November 12th. November, the month we're in now, the month of the Mothman. 1966. 2026 is coming up. Oh no. There's political tumult now. History's kind of gnarly now. Is Mothman gonna return to Point Pleasant? He just might. But anywho, somewhere outside of Clendon in 1965, a woman reported that her teen son was chased by what the teen reported was a headless angel from his bus stop home. The teen came home terrified, couldn't sleep, needed counseling afterwards. The mom reported it to the sheriff. Then November 12th, 1966, 5 men digging a grave in a cemetery outside of Clendon, West Virginia, witnessed a humanoid figure fluttering along the tree line. It circled around them, then slowly descended behind the trees. When they went to investigate, they found nothing. 1966, Clendon, West Virginia. A woman witnesses a 6-foot-long thing soar overhead while she's in her backyard in her garden. She thought it resembled a giant butterfly. November 14th, 1966, Newell Partridge at home witnesses 2 glowing red orbs dancing in his field. They surround his house. His dog goes a little nuts and chases the orbs out the door. The dog disappears into the night, never to be seen again. Newell reports this encounter to the sheriff. Nothing much is thought of it. Until November 15th, 1966. Mr. and Mrs. Scarberry and Mr. and Mrs. Mallet are cruising down Highway 62 after a nice leisurely double date. What they're cruising through is the TNT area. Now, the TNT area is where Mothman calls home. It's where it's its abode, if you will. The TNT area was a spot in World War II where West Virginia mass-produced TNT. It's a place with many bunkers, underground tunnels, empty power plants, the perfect place for a creepy, spooky creature to hang out. And that reminds me, if you have ever had an encounter with the weird and you'd like to share it, whether anonymously, whether anonymously or on stream anonymously to this email, aliensforalien@hotmail.com, or on stream, as always, we're ready to believe you. We already believe, baby. Tell me those stories. I've never had an encounter with the rare or the unknown beyond some small stories, really, but I'd love to hear yours because I already believe we know it's out there. Now, let's get back to Mr. and Mrs. Scarberry and Mr. and Mrs. Mallet. After their beautiful dinner, they're cruising through the TNT area, as couples do. It's a spooky area to drive through. It's fun. You see abandoned power plants and weird bunkers. You know, this is where they built weapons of mass destruction in World War II. Woohoo! They're driving through, having a good time. All of a sudden, they notice, and this is outside of Point Pleasant, mind you, and as they're passing one of the large power plants that has these huge doors open, like cargo doors or something are open, and they're peering through as they drive, they notice a large figure emerge from the shadows and stand in the doorway. The couple stared in horror as the creature shuffled toward the open door of the abandoned power plant and towards them. Mr. Scarberry wasted no time and put his foot on the gas and got the fuck out of there. However, no sooner are they flying down Route 62 towards Point Pleasant do they see the creature flying above them silently. The wings, they don't notice the wings flap. They just see it going, ooh. Not even that. I'm just trying to do that so you could like picture it. No noise. This creature has an 8-foot wingspan. It is peering down into their souls with glowing red eyes as they're flying 100 miles an hour down the road, Route 62, towards Point Pleasant. The creature followed them into the city limits and then circled back. They flew to the sheriff's office. The sheriff knew these kids allegedly, grew up with them, blah, 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 that whole deal. and swears these kids were good kids, wouldn't tell a lie, and swears to how genuine their fear was. When the sheriff and his boys went out to the TNT area, they didn't find anything, but the story was a sensation. After the teens were grilled by the media and interrogated by the police, everyone believed. The story hit the newspapers, and there were hundreds of people out there in the TNT area, little cryptid looky-loos, searching for the old Mothman. Some of them had encounters. Let's read about some more. The second most infamous encounter on this list happened to the Thomas family. Now, the Bennett family was going to visit them November 16th, 1966, only a day after the Scarberrys and the Mellets had their encounter. Now, the Bennetts are driving up, the mom and dad and their little girl, they're driving up to the Thomas family's house. They pull up, they get out of their car, and a large figure that seemed to be prone at first emerges. A large gray figure emerges from behind their car. It immediately spreads its terrifying, and as described by the Bennett family, bat-like wings and red glowing eyes flash at the couple. The wife, either mesmerized, hypnotized, or terrified, falls to the ground, dropping their little girl. The husband scoops them up and wakes them up, and terrified and panicked, they run inside the house as this creature looms towards them. And that unfortunately isn't the end of their ordeal. For hours now, both the Bennetts and the Thomas family will attest to this. They were pestered, terrified, and pestered by this creature. It stood on the porch, it peered through the windows. If it caught you in its glowing red eyes, it seemed to hypnotize and terrify you at the same time. This went on for hours until the Thomas family called the police, and by the time the police got there, the creature was gone. And that was the Thomas family encounter. When Keel went and visited Miss Bennett in 1967, so Keel went there to the Ohio River Valley in 1966 to investigate, and then later again in 67. When he went to Miss Bennett in 67, she claimed she was still in contact with the Mothman that had been to her house, and she could sense when the creature is afoot. From November 66 to November 67, sightings continue to rise. Hundreds of sightings are reported in Mason, Lincoln, Logan, Kewanna, and Nicholas counties, all through West Virginia. These are sightings of creatures, lights in the sky, strange entities. And again, if we take the old rule of 10, where you take all the reported sightings, times it by 10, because there are people who don't report because they don't want any of this stuff in the papers. Because if your sighting gets too excited or not excited, if your sighting gets too popular or viral, as the kids say, all these cryptid looky-loos come and try and check you out to make sure your story's legit. Then they try and come and check the cryptid out to make sure the cryptid's legit. It's just no good for anyone. So a lot of people don't come forward, and you can't blame them. But that's why you got to say, if there were 100 reports, at least 1,000 reports of this strange entity throughout West Virginia. And if you really want to get wacky with it, know this: there are still sightings of Mothman happening to this day. There's a beautiful episode on Netflix about the Mothman on their Unsolved Mysteries show. The Mothman episode they have on the recent season, or the last season I've seen, had some people who seen this beast recently. The reign of terror is not over, but I'm here to give you the humble history. Anywho, what the fuck am I talking about? Let's keep going with the sightings. November 21st, 1966, Charleston police get a call from an excited man claiming that a Batman was on the roof of his neighbor's house with big glowing red eyes that was about 6 feet tall with an 8-foot wingspan, and it flew as if it were a silent helicopter. The man claimed when he saw the creature and the creature saw him and they saw each other seeing each other, it rose up silently and ascended into the sky. Now, what does this sound like? This sounds exactly like the Chupacabra encounter we read about. The man peering at the Chupacabra out of his window saw it descend silently and then ascend silently as well. Go figure, the Chupi connection. November 25th, 1966. Thomas Urry, driving along Route 62 around 7:15 a.m., notices a tall gray figure standing on the side of the road as he's cruising through the TNT area. The thing with Thomas Urry, though, is he's taking a early morning, top down, windows down, music blaring ride. When he notices this creature, He gets a little spooked, but doesn't really mind it. So he steps on the gas and is flying through the trees, flying through the pines, flying by the cool, abandoned architecture of the TNT area when he notices the silent, non-flapping, monstrous creature overhead, peering down at him with those glowing red eyes, much like the Scarberry and Millette encounter. Just like that encounter, he floors it. He's flying at over 100 miles per hour because he's in a hot rod little convertible thing, but the creature keeps pace until he gets to city limits, where it whooshes around, and he, just like the Scarberry and Millette couple, flies to the sheriff's office to report the encounter. The sheriff is like, this guy is genuinely fucking freaked. We believe, even though they don't find any evidence. It makes an official report. Then on November 26th, a Miss Ruth Foster claims that the creature was on her front yard. This was in St. Albans, West Virginia. She said it had bright red glowing eyes that popped out of its face, and also reported that it silently ascended into the sky. Then, November 27th, we have Connie Carpenter. She also has a terrifying chase experience. But for her, she doesn't really remember her drive home. All she remembers is those eyes. And a feeling of being hypnotized by the red eyes and just being like, I was staring at them the whole time. I don't even know how I got home. After her encounter, she has a horrible swelling of her eyes for like a week after. She can't even go to school for several days. She's so terrified. Now, during this same time, we have to be open to all explanations, right? 2 firemen and several other people reported seeing large sandhill cranes around the area. Now, these are birds that are often associated with the Mothman scare. People are like, oh, it's just a sandhill crane. Those firefighters who had a weird bird encounter, they reported it just being a sandhill crane. There were some students and scientists in the area as well who encountered large birds. Unusual to the area though, still weird that they were there. The only notable thing about these sightings, that's an explanation. All of this could have been a sandhill crane. But you know me, and I'm not going to go off too hard on it because I talk about it all the time. But it just makes me think of the Caddy corpse that was found by the whalers. Caddy is a sea monster from British Columbia. Whalers found it inside a baleen whale stomach. And remember, whalers rip open whales all day long. They see shit all day. They know the difference between a fetal baleen whale and a sea monster. They find a sea monster in the whale's stomach. They're like, whoa, it's a sea monster. They send it to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian's like, no, it's not, you idiot. It's just a baleen whale. They don't even look at it, and they burn the corpse. For me, the people who live in an area know the area best, and if they see something weird, that's best to trust them. I live in a mountainous area. I don't see weird shit, but I get to see really cool animals. I saw a golden eagle landed in our backyard the last year, a bear, raccoons, cool coyotes, all sorts of shit. If it was something weird, I would know that and I would note that. So I believe the people in West Virginia who saw a Mothman. I know maybe there was this sandhill crane around as well, but I think the people who saw something weird and who are locals would know the difference. Anywho, on December 4th, 1966, 2 pilots described seeing what they said was a prehistoric bird, large enough to be a pterodactyl with a super large neck, circling the area of Galapagos, Ohio, near the airport, also in the Ohio River Valley, also near West Virginia. Another notable weird and strange bird creature thing sighting in 1966. So all sorts of weird Birdman shit happening back then. This would be the view if Mothman was hovering above us and observing us read about him and think about him. Oh my goodness, the McDaniel family. All right, so the whole kit and caboodle here. The McDaniel family is like it. John A. Keel goes down there, gets the story of the McDaniel family. The McDaniel family and McDaniel family. Now, Mabel McDaniel in 1967 has a classic sighting out on Route 62. The only thing different with her sighting is that she witnessed these like man legs dangling down from the giant bat beast. That's the only notable thing that's different from any other sighting that we've talked about so far. However, the McDaniel family ended up having a whole host of sightings and poltergeist encounters, you name it. The daughter, Linda, as well, also witnessed the Mothman. And afterwards, Every now and then around the house, she would hear, it seemed like the house was being surrounded by a strange sped up phonograph sound. Another parallel with our buddy El Chupacabra. If you remember the case with the 2 dogs, that family reported a slow phonograph sound going around their house, but still this strange acoustic sound surrounding them after they've had an encounter. Anywho, the whole McDaniel family, after Mabel and Linda have encounters, end up having heightened poltergeist experiences inside the house. I'm talking disembodied voices, objects are moving, heavy doors are slamming. Linda even encounters a shadow person in the living room that is so real to her that they have the cops come out and check the whole house. Of course, nothing is found. Now, at the same time, in 67, all of our witnesses, our previous witnesses, the Mothman, Carpenter, Mallet, the Mallet couple, the Scarberry couple, they're harassed by other strange couples. Carpenter, in 67, claims to have almost been kidnapped by a man driving a pristine 1949 Cadillac. The man was oddly shaped, she said, in a very clean, dark, all-black suit, and tried to grab her and bring her into the car. Shortly after that, she had a note slipped under her door that said, "We are watching you." Scarberries and Mallets also report that they were approached by a very strange couple that told them they were from a firm that takes annual photos of couples, even though they didn't approach anyone else in town. It was reported as a woman with bright red hair who was always trying to hide her face, and a big burly man that approached both couples. They took pictures and then never reported back to them, disappeared after that. Just strange, odd things connected to the people who had Mothman sightings. That's all we're trying to say. These sorts of sightings continued throughout the year. Hundreds of people reporting a strange flying creature with bright red eyes peering into their souls and leaving them with a deep sense of dread. Now then, in West Virginia in 1967, people started seeing a shit ton of UFOs. One Mr. Tad Jones spotted a huge metal sphere floating in the middle of Highway 62 that he reported had a propeller on the bottom. It silently rose into the sky and disappeared. The same object was seen in 66 by a woman who was afraid to come forward until she heard about it from Mr. Tad Jones. So this object had been seen several times. Allegedly, there was so much activity in the area that thousands flocked there. And they all encountered stuff, including the sheriff and other police officers and prominent members of the town. They all encountered UFOs and strange entities and reported about it. And I guess it's just an untalked about thing that happened. I don't know. One of the last classic Mothman sightings happened in March 1967 on a rainy night. A woman was driving home and she reported seeing a large creature emerge from the TNT area and chase her down. Then in 1967, 2 eyewitnesses driving on Route 62 claimed they saw the creature rise up from a wooded area. They saw a huge winged, glowing red-eyed freak rise up and meet a bright glowing orb in the sky. When the creature met the orb, it kind of absorbed into it, and then the orb disappeared. Was this Mothman leaving for good? Shortly after that, there weren't very many Mothman sightings anymore. Did it land in England with those 4 boys, and then end up going back home in March 67? I don't know. And this was at 10:30 p.m. that they saw it ascend and disappear. There was another family like the McDaniel family, the Lilly family, who through 67 and 68 experienced so much paranormal activity that they had to move from the area. So the McDaniel family, the Lilly family, who knows how many other households were having heightened poltergeist activity, and it was just going unreported during that whole UFO flap, Mothman flap. Other people also encountered strange men in black like folks. There was a man reported to come into town and say his name was Jack Brown, and he didn't know anything about Ohio, even though he claimed he was from Columbus. He came to a newspaper, and all he did, allegedly, was ask about John A. Keel. Then he disappeared into the night, never to be seen again. Other people were accosted with strange letters slid under their doors, and weird little men who would come and say, "You didn't see what you saw," and then disappear into the night. Kind of threaten them and then disappear. Unfortunately, in 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, taking with it 47 souls into the depths of the river. So God rest them, moment of silence. But after this horrible event, the strange UFO sightings and the Mothman sightings really died down. Now, it can be argued, and you could get into it, there are a lot of strange deaths associated with the Mothman sightings, just like with the opening of King Tut's tomb. But that might be looking too far into things. Who knows? All I know is that John A. Keel interviewed over 100 witnesses when he was down there in 1966 and 67. 100 people he was able to find. So it stands to reason that there might have been thousands more that he wasn't able to find. If you're asking me if Mothman is real, or at least the Mothman who appeared from 66 to 67 as possibly a harbinger of doom, a warning to those of the fate of the Silver Bridge, or perhaps just a visitor here during the strange thinning of the veil that was happening in Ohio and the Ohio River Valley in West Virginia at that time, with all the strange creatures and sightings happening during that time, during this year. It's not too long afterwards, or 1972, we have the year of the frogmen and the lizardmen across the country. Then not to mention all the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, skunk ape, all that other stuff that's also happening. And those happen throughout history. There's no spat of those. Those are just fucking happening all the time. And then tie that in with all the stuff we know about ancient encounters with weird beings, just points to they just might inhabit another dimension. They just might be a part of a strange paranormal umbrella that's part of the beauty of life, that's here to just show us that there's something beyond our own material life. But who knows? I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's just all bullshit and everyone's hallucinating and they're all nuts. But I like to believe that it's all real. So if you're asking me if Mothman's out there, 100%, it's an interdimensional traveler here to open our minds. That's all I got for you, Mothman. I hope you have a great rest of your night, day, or whatever you're doing. Ta-ta.